Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with defense reporter Mike Brest. And Mike, the Taliban now obviously fully in control of Afghanistan. They're starting to form a government. They're starting to flex their muscles. And counterterrorism experts that you've spoken with talked about concerns that this will have a really big impact on U.S. efforts to combat terrorism. Tell us about what they said.
Yeah, so a lot of what they've talked about is how the counterterrorism abilities of the United States has increased substantially over the 20-year war. However, when you take into account the fact that they don't have assets on the ground anymore, there really is now a vacuum in how to get that intelligence.
The Biden administration not exactly being clear on how many Americans are still stuck in Afghanistan. There are more than a dozen in Mazar-e-Sharif trying to get on these private charter planes out of Afghanistan. Is the Biden administration offering any clarity about how they plan to evacuate those that are still there?
Yeah, so there's little clarity being that the Biden administration is coming out with in specific. However, we've seen both the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State travel overseas to try and broach this relationship with neighboring countries of Afghanistan to start implementing this process and start to get the ground rolling.
How do you think the Biden administration has done since the withdrawal in trying to sort of explain what is still left to be done in Afghanistan? I know there's been some concerns among lawmakers that they're getting conflicting information.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of conflicting information come out from various sources. We've seen members of Congress break news. We've seen the White House break news. We've seen NGOs break news, and there really hasn't been one exact funnel of information, so it's very piecemeal at this point.
How many Americans are still left in Afghanistan?
It's unclear, but it seems like it's more than 100, but less than 200, as Secretary of State Antony Blinken said.
And finally, last week, the Biden administration contacted at least 18 officials that Donald Trump had appointed to the advisory boards at military academies. You wrote about this for the Examiner. Tell us about what happened there.
Yeah, to give you a little bit of background, there are oversight boards made up of private citizens to hold accountable the military institutions. And so the president, whoever the current president is, has the ability and the authority to appoint people to these panels. And so when President Trump, towards the end of his administration, started appointing a lot of people, we saw the Secretary of Defense put a pause on that so they could review it. And the final step in sort of this review was the Biden administration contacting nearly all of the Trump-appointed officials and asking for their resignations and saying, if we don't get your resignation, you should be considered fired. And so we saw a number of people, Kellyanne Conway and Sean Spicer, two of them, to come out and be upset about it and to accuse the Biden administration of playing politics with this.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more reporting from Mike and the rest of the national security team at WashingtonExaminer.com.